Alright, so it's been an interesting month. Stranger Things Season 5 has been coming out, and with that, it's been pretty interesting seeing the online response to it. As usual, Netflix releases it in volumes, and I thought this time it would be pretty interesting to talk about both volumes at the same time. So okay, let's see how different my opinion is. I won't lie, the start of Season 5, specifically the first 5 minutes, are fun, but kind of underwhelming. Season 4's ending, and more specifically its cliffhanger, is surreal, and the amount of work that Season 4 did to get to that point is nothing short of fantastic. So to see it being resolved in the first 5 minutes of the season is underwhelming. And it's a shame because I would have loved to see maybe just a couple of minutes of immediately starting off from where Season 4 ended, seeing hell on earth, literally, instead of oh
yeah, we kind of covered up those gates with just metal plates, so you shouldn't worry about them.
But aside from that, holy shit. I personally think The Crawl is the best premiere episode they've done for a season ever. I love that the party has been doing these crawls ever since the end of Season 4, and we get to really see by this point in the story, they're like...
Does Crawl what? Are we in the 30s now? And not a single baddie in sight? Elle can't find him in her bath, and Will hasn't had his goosies since the shake and quake.
It's almost disheartening in a way, but they still go on, and I think that is some really good writing. The way they communicate about these crawls, I think, is also just super sick to see. The way they talk in code in an almost Scooby-Doo type of way, seeing the gang all in different parts of Hawkins and understanding where and what they have to do. This might be an underrated take, but I actually really love the radio station. It's the Avengers Tower equivalent in Stranger Things, which I think is really just funny. All the initial setup of this season is so well done in this episode, and most importantly, I think it's amazing that they left all the central conflicts in just Hawkins. Season 4 is a great season. By no means am I trying to take anything away from it, but it is definitely a bit of a mess at times, especially cutting between all the different areas and locations to all the different plot lines. But thankfully, Season 5 doesn't have that problem. We're really centered in on Hawkins and what the party is doing in Hawkins. Speaking of the party, I'm so unbelievably satisfied with the way they handled Mike's character in Volume 1. Mike's been a tricky character for the last 2 seasons. I really like Mike's character. I really do, because he feels like the most almost realistic take of what a teenager is, but I'd be lying if I said he hasn't been sidelined heavily, especially in Season 4. But thankfully he goes back to the role he was always meant to play in Season 5. One of my favorite moments this season is in the Turnbow Trap. As usual, they're discussing a plan and none of them are really reaching a conclusion on what to do in that plan. But then you have Mike step in, fill out all the holes in the plan, and then it's a really solidifying and defining character moment in my opinion. He's unquestionably the heart of the group, and you get to really see that. His talk with Eleven on the top of the radio station, really trying to fill the heart of the group. Even if what he's saying doesn't seem like reality to any of them, it's still nice to see that the heart of the group believes that on some distant day, they can reach that point. And he beats up a Demogorgon. This is prime time Mike Tyson, but he's actually Mike Wheeler. And honestly, the same can kind of be said for Will. Will has also been a character that's kind of just been sidelined for the past 2 seasons, but Season 5, Volume 1 made Will reach an all-time high for his character. And it's impossible to kind of talk about Will without mentioning who he's paired up with this season. Whoever's idea was to pair Robin and Will together, I just wanna... It's the best thing to happen to his character ever since Season 2, and it's such a great decision. Cause Will's arc this volume is just all about him and who he's meant to be and kind of that internal conflict. So to pair him up with Robin, who's been through that same thing, is just a smart play by the writers. And it's not just that, we kind of see Will also taking charge of who he is. He's always made out to be the weakest of the party, but sometimes, truthfully so, he's kind of the strongest. Especially with the way Season 5 starts with that cold open to November 12, 1983. Like, it re-emphasizes that even though Will may seem weak, he really isn't. The great thing about Will's arc this season is how they handle the ships. I mean, it's no secret that Will has liked Mike, and we've known that since season 3. And the way the volume handles it with making Mike Will's Tammy, leading into this beautiful conversation between Will and Robin, I mean, it can't be unnoticed. Major props to Maya Hawke for even delivering this speech, because it's so well done. I seriously can't emphasize it enough, but Robin is such a scene stealer at times. The charisma she brings and the amount of just spark she adds to a scene, it's surreal how good she is. Episode 4 is so hard not to talk about because it's objectively one of the best episodes in the show. The highest high for Will's character this volume, even if it felt like the simplest card ever that they could have pulled, the one that we were all speculating. Even if they played that card, it's the way they played it and the way it related to Will's arc is, I think, why it's so good. Seeing that montage play out before Will taps back into the hive mind, really being able to be Vecna, this sorcerer, there's no better way to say it other than it's fucking peak. Lucas is probably the one out of the 4 original in the party that has the least to do in this volume. He's by no means bad. It's always great to see Lucas, but you don't really get to see much of his arc other than him obviously sitting with Max, hoping that she comes back. But other than that, I wouldn't say there are any really definitive character moments for Lucas this volume. Other than it's just great to see Caleb McLaughlin like acting his ass off, especially with the scenes where Max is with him. I mean, his highest high is like the dick joke. Which, by the way, there's like a lot of dick jokes. Like a bit too many. And they're really on the tip. Which, by the way, if you didn't realize, that was also a dick. Dustin's an interesting one this season because I've seen a lot of people say like, oh, I miss the old Dustin. What did they do to him? But I can't believe I'm about to say this. This is my favorite version of the character we've seen. Don't get me wrong. I love smart, charming Dustin. But for some reason, this season, it's like the most interesting card they've played for the character in a while. Cause don't get me wrong, it's always nice seeing consistent Dustin, you know, him loving his friends, him being a dork, him just, you know, being the smartest of the group. But seeing Dustin in this kind of interesting place is the best thing they could have done for the character. And it's never too forced. It's not like, oh,
I'm edgy now. Oh, look at me. Oh, no, I'm in my dark era zone, you know.
Like, no, it just feels like this character's natural progression after the events of season 4. And even when he's at this kind of dark point, we still get some like hilarious moments between him and Steve. At the core of it, it's still Dustin, but it's a different outer shell, kind of like Hopper in season 4. Everyone in the party is given great material. Almost every character is given something good in this first volume. I said almost. The love triangle is such an, like, bleh thing, especially because we have 3 strong characters, in my opinion, at the core of this love triangle. Like, it makes for some interesting conversations, especially between Jonathan and Steve, but the way it's initially set up in episode 1, it's just so corny. And it's so on the nose as well that it's just way too annoying. I would have loved a follow through of what they set up with Jonathan in the end of season 4. Because unfortunately, we never get to see any follow through with that. Will and Jonathan aren't given like a proper relationship this season. Like, the relationship is obviously there, but we don't get to really see it at all. Like, they never get any moments together. Instead of this just constant bickering between Jonathan and Steve that admittedly leads to nowhere. Like, if it were any other season, maybe I would have been less harsh on it, but the fact that it is the final season and they're using as much screen time as they did on it, it's just so unnecessary. The only interesting thing to come out of this is the questionable proposal that Jonathan may pull off. Nancy is paired up with Mike finally after 5 seasons. They remember, like, oh shit, right, they are siblings. I really love seeing the two of them interacting again after so long. Which is another thing, like, they could have done that as well. They could have had Nancy be focused on her relationship with Mike and Jonathan instead of this stupid love triangle. I absolutely loved their sibling moments in episode 2, and just seeing the way they like bicker at each other in, again, sibling fashion. It's like, do more of that, please. Which, speaking of the Wheeler siblings, Holly Wheeler is such an interesting character because it's the show's way of bringing everything kind of full circle. The vanishing of Will Byers obviously being now the vanishing of Holly Wheeler, meaning that the first episode had to do a lot of like backbones caring for us to really care about Holly, which I think they do pretty well. Her moment with Mike in the school is another highlight of episode 1. Mike giving Holly the heroic as a way to remind her that she is brave and she is strong, and this figure kind of becomes the central focus of Holly's arc. But the big card that they play with her character obviously being the Wheeler attack. I think this is easily one of the best sequences in the entire show, and obviously the thing they're trying to emphasize with this is that no character is safe, which admittedly is a really good thing to set up for your final season. Seeing the Wheeler house of all places, the place that used to be kind of the main location of the party, they would always come back here for security, be the place that was attacked, it's great. I said that in like a happy way, but I meant like as in it's great for the season, not great for the characters. Obviously, the thing they're trying to emphasize is that no one is safe. But this message does come back to kind of stab them in the back in volume 2. It obviously would have been a bold choice to kill off the Wheelers in episode 2, which is a choice that I kind of wish they took, but I'm not necessarily mad that they didn't take it. Like, the stakes are already there. We kind of see the potential threat that exists now. One of the highlights of this entire sequence, in my opinion, is seeing Nancy's reaction to it. You have to give your flowers to Natalia Dyer because she's honestly one of the most consistent actors in the entire show. But the true GOAT of this entire sequence, Ted walking down. But once again, I love how this sequence kind of brings the show in a full circle type of way, making Vecna's plan taking kids and that being the mystery kind of similar to season 1 of like why was Will taken. They do add another persona to Vecna this season, being Mr. Whatsit, which is kind of unironically my favorite version of the character for some reason. But the person they decide to pair Holly with this season is Max. Max is one of those characters that we kind of didn't know anything going into the season on what they were actually going to do with her, but I was happily surprised with the way they handled Max in volume 1. Having her kind of be the way to get some exposition dumps on Henry, but also a way to kind of continue her arc, was a really smart move by the Duffers. They don't do anything crazy with her character yet this volume, but I'm surprised with the initial setup with her in volume 1. But I wish I could say the same about these two characters. Hopper and Eleven, in my opinion, started off really strong in episode 1. I was so excited, but they kind of went in an up and down situation with the writing this volume. I wish this volume did more to emphasize the rivalry between Vecna and Eleven, because even though season 4 did a really good job of doing that, we should have been reminded of that rivalry. Hopper is kind of given the Joyce treatment this season, where he is the overprotective parent to Eleven, which, don't get me wrong, is consistent with his character, but it kind of gets a bit annoying when that's the only thing they do with his character. There are some really sweet moments between the two, and admittedly it's a fun dynamic with seeing the two actors playing off each other, but other than that, there isn't really much to say, which is kind of a shame, especially because Eleven and Hopper were like the two stars of the show. The big thing they do with their dynamic is the return of Callie, which, to be honest, was an interesting move that the Duffers made. So it was a bold move of them to return Callie to the show. And admittedly so, the moment in volume 1 is great. Honestly, it's one of those reveals where it's less about shock value and it genuinely felt like a powerful moment. But the character that I think lost most of her potential is, unfortunately, Joyce. She is such a forgettable character. It's genuinely surreal to me how Joyce went from the highest highs of the show to being kind of the lowest low. She has one really great moment with Will in the Turnbow Trap episode, but other than that, there wasn't really much that's memorable. And I honestly think this stems from the problem of the Duffers no longer know how to write these adult characters. Other than Karen, who gets like a really powerful moment in episode 2 of, fighting off the Demogorgon, no other person gets that same powerful moment. Hopper and Joyce are literally the equivalent of 2 peas in a pod. The Duffers just don't know what to do with them anymore, to the point that they're just doing the same thing, but slightly switching it, and it resulting in something I guess okay or literally annoying. And it pains me to say this, cause can you imagine the 2 characters that stole literally every moment in season 1 and even season 2 are like arguably the least memorable part of this volume. The only thing they can do with Hopper, which they've done like for the millionth time now, is fake out his death. And it's a shame, but it's so true that these once gritty, emotional characters that we knew from season 1 have kind of just become these very one-dimensional characters. Vecna isn't given much in volume 1, besides obviously his Mr. What's-It appearance, but I like the fact that you can still feel his presence. His return in episode 4 is by far one of the sickest things they've done in the entire show, and hands down to the Duffers for even coming up with that entire sequence. It kind of re-emphasizes this powerful, intelligent evil that is playing no games. Like, he genuinely came in, fucked everyone up, and left. And I feel like it's such a rewarding moment seeing Will and Vecna 1-1 right in front of each other after like 10 years of build-up. I honestly don't know what more I can say about volume 1 to emphasize how fucking great it was. In short words, it's literally classic Stranger Things. It gave us objectively one of the best episodes of the entire show, and unironically one of my favorite episodes of the show, being the Turnbow Trap. So how does it fare in comparison with Volume 2? Volume 2 is, in short terms, conflicting. It's easily the most conflicted I've been watching the show. I hate to start talking about this volume so negatively, but I need to. I think this issue in previous seasons were kind of subtle. Like, you always knew it was there, but it's subtle enough to where it's not conflicting with your opinions on the episode. But this season in specific, it kind of becomes an issue. Earlier, I mentioned how the Wheeler attack kind of set up this message of no one is safe, but volume 2 comes back to kind of stab that message in the back. And unfortunately, it does. I think this issue was present in volume 1, but it was only subtle, but also really annoying. For instance, we see in episode 4 Max running away from Vecna, but for some reason, Vecna just lets her run when he could have easily, done this. Like, this is a minor issue, like, fine, you can kind of throw that away as chalk it up to obviously plot armor. But now here's when the major issues come in. We've established this season that Vecna is taking kids using the Demogorgons, the ones that can open gates. So tell me why, instead of sending a Demogorgon to the hospital, he sends Demodogs. This one is the most obvious case of plot armor, and it's so underwhelming, because that entire sequence in the hospital, I'm thinking to myself, wow, this sequence wouldn't exist at all if he just did what he did previously. And that gets annoying because they want us to believe that we're going into this finale with the mindset of oh my god, they're gonna kill off everyone, everyone's gonna die. Even the convenience of somehow Karen Wheeler, the person who could barely write a day ago, got out of her hospital bed and made it just in time to kill all these Demodogs. I obviously want to throw out logic because it's such a cool moment for Karen, but it's also just damn, they can't risk a single character in this show. And I'm not trying to say that we need characters to die to make a good show. I don't think that at all. But when you set up such a huge message like this in episode 2, and we don't get to really see that message at all throughout the rest of the season, it's underwhelming. Volume 2 has some great moments. And I'm not letting anyone take that away. Episode 5, Shock Jock, is genuinely one of those underrated episodes in my opinion. There's so many high highs in this episode that it baffles me that people are just flying over them. I feel like this volume really emphasizes to me that I'm continuing to love what they're doing with Dustin's character in relation with him being with Steve. They genuinely are the two best parts of the show, and I don't see anyone getting near them. Their fighting in this volume and their constant arguing is so heartbreaking. But then seeing Dustin run to him, Gaten Matarazzo and Joe Keery, flowers to the both of you, because holy shit, rekindling that friendship and seeing the bond between the both of them, you die, I die, fucking beautiful. The emphasis on Will's new powers in this episode as well makes it so good, because unfortunately the volume just kind of doesn't do anything with that reveal after episode 5. This entire sequence is easily one of the best scenes in the entire show. I'm pleasantly surprised with the way they handled Callie in this volume. I love the idea of 11 representing who Callie would be if she had the right support system, and who 11 would be if she didn't have this entire family now. Getting to understand Callie and 11's role in this vicious cycle, as the way they say it, is really interesting. My only problem is I wish there was kind of more setup on 11's side to this, because volume 1 doesn't really do anything to set this up at all. Like, this decision to stay behind is kind of just randomly presented to 11. It's not something that you kind of get subtly hinted at in volume 1. You never get this feeling in the first volume that like, oh, 11 is gonna make this huge decision to sacrifice herself at the end, which kind of makes it all the more disappointing, because 11 doesn't have a character defining moment in volume 1 that makes you think like, that's 11, she's the main character. But credit to the Duffers for being able to bring Callie back and making her interesting and making her relevant to the end of 11's arc. But I think it becomes a problem when Holly Wheeler has more screen time than the main character of the show. Like, 11's been going up and down the entire season, and it's kind of weird this is the way they wanted to write their main character in the final season. And I'm really hoping the finale changes my mind on this and makes all of this worth the build-up, because I'm really hoping 11 has that moment that I'm talking about of like, holy shit, 11, you are the main fucking character. Nancy and Jonathan easily have one of the best scenes in the entire show. The entire scene is beautiful. And honestly, it went in a direction that I didn't think they would take it. Obviously, I'm sure the Duffers are aware how much the fandom loves making ships, all these things, all like, oh, Jancy, oh no, I'm Stancy, like all these things. But I'm surprised that the Duffers decided to take the natural character decision instead of the forced, fan-satisfying version of it. And I love that, metaphorically speaking, their relationship is sinking, but once they fix everything, their foundation is solid and they can continue to be who they are. It's a great moment and both actors give it their all. It's so sick finally getting to see what the Upside Down is, and I think it's such a well-made moment. This entire shot is so sick, and with Dustin kind of talking over it, it's so sick. It's also really cool finally getting to see Dimension X play a bigger part in the show, or as they call it now, which is the much better name, the Abyss. And I'm really excited to see more of it in the finale, hopefully. And obviously you can't go without mentioning the entire sequence of the end of episode 6 and the beginning of episode 7. 6, 7. Even though running up that hill is kind of getting a lot of the magic that made it so good is kind of going away, I still really love the entire sequence and the beginning of episode 7 where Max wakes up and realizing that it was just never about the music. And I know a lot of people are just kind of disappointed with the way they handled Max waking up and like greeting everyone, but the show just needs to keep going on. I don't know what else they could have done in the moment, to be honest. Like, They could have definitely played it out a bit differently, but like, I'm satisfied, I guess, with how she woke up. But now the thing that I've kind of just been dodging for a bit, because I want to emphasize that there's a lot of good in this volume and it's not how it's being made out. Before even getting into that scene, I do want to mention that I think Will's character was pretty consistent this volume as well. I really like the fact that they're emphasizing Will's role as the vessel that he was, and I love this line from him when he says,
And if I could do all of that, what could he do with 12 more like me?
it really does kind of show you like what Vecna's plan is in the grand scheme of things. Like, it emphasizes that. And even if the episode is getting heavily review bombed, I do have to say that for a penultimate episode, it was a bit lackluster. I want to emphasize by saying that it's a fine episode. It genuinely is. It even acts as like an okay episode if it wasn't the second last one. But the fact that this is the second last episode is what makes it so tricky. It's a lot of telling and not showing. Like, they want us to believe that the stakes are there. Like, when they're saying like, oh, he wants to merge worlds, he's gonna crash the abyss into Hawkins, he's gonna make it one. Like, they want us to believe the stakes, but they're not really showing it to us. They're just saying words and expecting that like we feel something, but we never really do. The stakes aren't ever really present in the episode, but that feeling is never really felt at all, even by the end of the episode. And unfortunately, I think that has to do with the decision of Will's character in this episode. At this point, Will's arc has really been just about him. It always has been just about Will. No matter the external reasons, it's always been an internal conflict. So I think to make it an external conflict in episode 7 was a poor decision on the Duffers' part, which is unfortunate because a scene like this was really needed for Will's character, but not needed like this and not in this way, which is a shame because the Duffers have shown that they can do a scene like this and make it really fucking good. And don't get me wrong, by no means is the scene as terrible as everyone is making it out to be. It's still emotional and it's sweet seeing how everyone comes in together to hug at the end. Personally, I think the way they should have handled it is they should have just carried on with the plan. Will should have never mentioned it, and it should have been a one-on-one between Vecna and Will, where Will isn't really able to channel his abilities because, again, it's all about that internal conflict. The only way he was able to really use his abilities is because of that internal conflict. I think it would have been a way powerful moment if Vecna actually used that fear against Will in the final episode, and seeing how Will reacts to it, seeing how Will kind of has that difficulty of trying to channel his abilities, trying to tap into the hive mind while trying to deal with that conflict. And then in the epilogue, we could have had a beautiful moment between either Will and the party or Will and Joyce and Jonathan, where it's a Robin and Steve kind of scene where he just tells them. My problem lies in not the fact that he just told them in that way, but the fact that the plot demanded it, and the fact that it also paused this dooming threat that they were talking about like 3 seconds ago. Again, I want to reiterate by saying that by no means do I think episode 7 is as bad as everyone is trying to make it out to be, and as bad as the reviews are trying to say it is, but it 100% is an underwhelming penultimate episode, and you can't really argue that. It has its emotional beats and its very sweet character moments, but the stakes aren't really felt, and the final episode doesn't feel like the final episode. If I wasn't told prior to starting episode 7 that this is the penultimate episode, I would have never guessed that it was. I would have assumed that I'm just watching another episode in the season. And I think the issue lies in the problem of the Netflix releases. I'm gonna just say it, I fucking hate the part releases. When they did it for season 4, it didn't seem like that big of a problem. But once they did it with Cobra Kai, I kind of realized why it was a dumb idea. Cause in my mind, the season is now separated. I can't look at it like, oh, this is Stranger Things season 5 episode 7. No, in my mind, it's Stranger Things season 5 volume 2 episode 3. The volume releases messes the season in your head so much because you can never see the season as a full package. You just see it as separate parts, and you compare those parts instead of really criticizing the entire season as a whole. I feel like season 5 should have been the season where they should have released everything at once. Because you're going from the highs of highs in volume 1 to some really lows in volume 2, and it kind of creates this conflicting feeling throughout the season. Honestly, I don't have much to say about the finale. I'm nervous, but I'm also really excited. Other than that, I don't have much to say about the finale. I know a lot of people are nervous about it turning into like Game of Thrones, but I don't think that's the case. I think the ending is gonna land the plane pretty safely. I mean, it's gonna take a lot for them to really make it into a Game of Thrones type of ending, because they would literally have to ruin things so badly on like an unimaginable scale, which I just don't think is possible within 2 hours. I don't have scores to say either. I'm just satisfied with both volumes, even if I'm conflicted with one more than the other. I'm so immensely satisfied with especially volume 1 because I think that's just peak classic Stranger Things, and I think volume 2 gave us some really great moments but also has some worries in them and some conflicting things about it, but that's fine. And I don't think it's as bad, again, as everyone says it is. But yeah, I guess I'll see you guys after the finale, which is crazy to say because the show is ending in literally a day. So that's weird. No more Stranger Things. So I'll see you on the other side of all of this. I really hope they do a good job. Please, Duffers, please.